What's going on, everybody? Welcome back. 2 weeks in a row. We call that a streak where we come from, Andrew, of burning the red shirt. Andrew and myself, we're in the middle, almost the middle of August. We're weeks away. This is the home stretch. One question to start us off. Was this offseason faster or slower than last year?
It felt like it really dragged for a little near end of spring, beginning of summer. The UD best ball stuff going live really made time melt away. If getting almost zero in the way of season-long player props really kind of strung things out and made time move at a crawl. But so that is a cop-out answer of saying a little bit of both.
I would say for me, it's been faster. And maybe it's because I've had a kid and I just am like busy enough where I don't just sit here and think about college fantasy football the whole time.
Yeah.
But another random question. I was thinking about this at 6 a.m. when I woke up randomly. Couldn't go back to sleep. Is it more appropriate to say fantasy college football than college fantasy football? Like, I know you're a very CFF, but isn't the other one just as doesn't it fit the mold just as much as CFF?
I haven't thought about this in so long since we fought this war on social media, and clearly we came out victorious. So I forget what all my arguments looked like on why it is clearly CFF. But I'm not really willing to entertain.
Are you too old to die on that hill of what it should be called? Or you just don't have the.
I thought that the battle's over. We won.
I need to go back and find the battle. I don't remember ever debating one or the other. I just know that you've always been very firm on CFF, and I just was like, all right, cool. I don't care.
Jared's podcast, right when he first started, called it Fantasy College Football, and everybody was kind of like in a very nice way. I feel like dude, you're going to want to rebrand that and kind of redo that intro, because that's not how we, the collective, refer to it.
But doesn't fantasy college football make so much sense? Could you argue the only beneficial thing for college fantasy football is that it's a better abbreviation, CFF, than FC fantasy college football? FCF?
I don't know, I guess.
Anyways, all right. Well,
I have a question for you.
Okay.
I went running this morning and my brain was firing on all cylinders. You might not want to play this game, but I want to play it.
Okay.
So I've thought of two rivalries, one the P5, one in the G5, that I feel like are very similar in a bunch of different ways. They traditionally, and they're both are very long going back rivalries that I think exist for regional purposes. They take place always near the end of the season. The P5 one is always the last week of the season. The G5 one, I believe, is a little more variable. What sticks out to me in terms of their similarities is, at least recently, one team from both of them is very more CFF centric. We love their offenses. We target them because they're kind of high flying and they're fun. Target their skill players and whatnot. The other side of the rivalry in both cases, though, it's all right, a little more boring. And even some years, the more high flying team may be more highly rated going into that rivalry. It doesn't matter, though. The boring team always comes out ahead. They always win. Who are the two rivalries?
Iowa, Nebraska?
No.
So you said one P4 and one G5, basically, right?
Correct.
G5 plays late, P5 plays early?
No, P5 is always rivalry week, the last weekend of the year. The G5 one, I don't think it is always the last week of the year. I think it is always near the back end of the calendar. But I don't think it's always the last week.
Are they conference matchups?
Good question. P5, no. G5, yes.
So what? I'm trying to think of the P5 late conference. Is it? Georgia Tech?
No.
Now I'm just thinking, South Carolina, Clemson.
No, but you're thinking, and it's right. It's ACC, SEC.
Okay, so then it's Kentucky, Louisville.
Yes.
Okay, and then the G5, there's no way
It's Mountain West.
You would just have to give it to me. There's no
Colorado State, Wyoming.
Is that really a rivalry?
Border war, very intense.
Well, I didn't know that, obviously.
Yeah, that. There is legitimate hatred there.
You said Colorado State and Wyoming.
Yeah.
Let's see. What does the wiki give me? What about? Do you know what the Black Diamond rivalry is?
No, what's that?
Virginia Tech, West Virginia. We don't play it as much anymore.
Oh,
They did the home field shirt. This is Black Diamond champions, like 98 to 2001. And I was like,
dope.
I'm pretty sure that's West Virginia, Virginia Tech. And then I had to confirm it. I mean, if you talk to old school, the Big East, Virginia Tech fans, I think people in blacks you could argue that that's a bigger rivalry than Virginia.
What about Backyard Brawl? How would you rank them?
Isn't Backyard Brawl Pitt in West Virginia?
Correct. But the three that we just named, hold on. What was the second one you named?
You talk about West Virginia and Virginia Tech, Virginia, West Virginia,
Okay.
Virginia Tech. Those are the two I brought up.
So all those teams are involved in two, or at least there's no overlap across all three of the rivalries I just named.
Yeah, what's also interesting is that I think there's a lot of people that consider Miami a bigger rival for Virginia Tech than Virginia. There's a little bit of like Virginia hasn't been good enough to make it where it's like a sexy rivalry. Plus, for a while, I think this was pre-me, but like Virginia's always been ACC. Virginia Tech was a late ad, so it wasn't like a conference matchup either. Whereas the West Virginia had bigger implications. But I want to ask you about your own Carson Beck. Give me like your bold, give me like his ceiling. Like if you said, I firmly believe this bold take on Carson Beck, his ceiling, what kind of numbers would you tell me his ceiling are?
It's interesting. You look at like betting markets for him from a passing yards perspective, conference leader stuff in the SEC. You look at passing yards last year for him. Did he lead the SEC in passing yards last year, or is it just returning passing yards?
I don't know, but it was impressive. I mean, like he had 3,500 plus yards. It was
and he's only playing half the game in most of those games, right? Like last year's Georgia schedule was an absolute joke.
Yeah, but if you look at the games where Georgia crushed, he still had good games. Like he still threw for.
I know this, and that's where I'm going with this. Last year. Yeah, it was last year where the schedule, like from the outset, it was like, what are we even doing here? Like they didn't play a real conference team. I think it was because they had to cancel the Oklahoma game because the SEC was like, hey, don't play them. Like they're going to be in the SEC. Like don't do that. And then we replaced it with like UAB. So we didn't play a real non-con game outside of Georgia Tech. Got a relative cakewalk in terms of the SEC schedule. I don't think we crossed against Ole Miss and just thrashed them and then whatever.
Missouri, Tennessee, Kentucky, the typical.
Yeah. But he was out of the game by halftime, early third a lot of the time. This year does not set up that way. I feel like we might have talked about it a little bit because Georgia and me just bringing it up generally, but like if anyone else was facing Georgia's schedule this year, you would see their win projection in the gutter relative to that team's actual quality. And then like Georgia is chilling at like a juice over 10.5. But the reality of that schedule, right? They play like 5 or 6 teams that have probably at least a coin flip chance to go into to make it to the playoff. He's going to be playing deeper into games, and I think that will raise his ceiling.
The problem with that is like if you're going to replace the UAB game with Clemson, is he really going to outproduce 338 yards and 3 touchdowns, like in a rushing touchdown? Like, is he really, because he's going to play a fourth quarter, now all of a sudden he's going to throw for 404 touchdowns? Like, it's not like, the only game that there was a blowout and he didn't really have a huge game was UT Martin. Mm-hmm. All these other blowouts, like he still threw for 300 and a couple of touchdowns. So like you could give him another touchdown, 50 yards, but like, that's why I'm asking what you think his upside is, because last year he threw for essentially 3,500 yards and 22 passing touchdowns in the regular season.
Maybe it's more of a copy and paste then, which I think is fine. I was surprised in hindsight, looking at his numbers, how little running he did. I thought he ran a little more, but it doesn't seem like that's really in his toolbox too much.
Yeah, he only had like 45 or 50 rushing attempts on the season, like 49 attempts on the season if you took it with sacks. You
Yeah.
still haven't given me his best case up. Like, if you were to tell somebody his ceiling is X, you got to tell it to me. Passing yards and passing touchdowns.
Regular over a 12-game season,
12
let's
game, yeah.
say 3,500 passing yards and 30 touchdowns.
See, I think you're being a little bit lenient on the passing yards. I think he could go 4,000.
Lenient in terms of conservative.
Yeah, I think you could go more. I think he could throw for 4,000, 4,200.
I just have a
Wouldn't
tough
surprise me.
time, like doing the quick math and being like, oh, you're gonna average 300 yards passing. That like, unless you're in a system that we know is firing the ball 50 times, 40 plus times through the air, just throwing it. But I guess your question was through the lens of like best case. So I don't know if you're like, if you want to tell me that I can be more of a homer, sure.
Yeah, I'm this is the one time. This is the one time you get to be a homer. What about the receiving group? I know you guys lose Robert Thomas with Kirby Smart's first ever suspension.
You were starting to say that you were talking to, or seeing someone talking about how high they were on the receiving room. I don't know. It doesn't seem like anything really special to me. Lovett seems fine. Like Kobe Young, also fine. I don't know. I'm not like Dylan Bell is really cool. You can do fun gadget stuff with him. I like having him on my team. Who else is there? I'm forgetting someone who's
like Arian Smith.
Oh, I mean, it's fun when he runs 70 yards down the field and then is wide open, and Beck puts it right on him, and we still only have about a 33% chance of completing the pass. But
you know who else is on the team is Michael Jackson III,
the USC guy.
The USC guy.
There's someone else who's like a primary contributor.
London Humphreys is considered pretty cool, but I think that's
do you remember when recruiting services ranked him as the number one transfer because he committed to UGA?
Yeah, that was so bad. Just awful.
He's not even projected to start, right?
No, he's not.
Who is the third starter?
I think you would consider Bell the third starter. You would throw him out there, and I think obviously though, right? You're probably just going to go a lot of. Well, maybe you don't do as many 2 tight end sets because no Bowers, obviously, and then the one guy.
Have you drafted their tight ends at all? On
Never.
Why?
I think there's enough. I don't think Delp's good for one.
Yeah, he goes way too high.
Urasek is cool, but like he doesn't feel like a Georgia tight end. Like he feels a little soft for a Georgia tight end. And even then, I'm not sure that he would get more snaps than Delp. Like if you told me Urasek was number 1, then I think, yeah, I would be drafting him. But I'm not even confident he'll be the guy or like see the field enough to be considered worth it in drafts.
Yeah.
I mean, he's going late now at least, so you're not paying a hefty price for him.
Yeah. I've drafted Urasek a few times. It feels like it could go like there's low floor, higher ceiling for him, I think. Like I think he could be like pretty awesome in the system. And I agree with you. Like in terms of what we've actually seen, I don't know why I would assume that there's a high ceiling for Delp and why I would pull the trigger on him at the price. Lovett goes high on Underdog simply because people are like, oh, I need to stack him with Beck and he's the best receiver, right?
Yeah, plus I think that it does help that like Lovett was seen last year. He was pretty solid. He had that year at Missouri where he was good. So like if you have guys that are older CFF players, then maybe you can see it. But I think it's probably a matter of stacking.
Yeah, it's cute. Whatever.
The problem with Delp is that we've seen, like you said, we've seen it. Like Bowers was not in a bunch of games, and he was fine. Like 3 for 30 and a touchdown. Okay, like that's like not bad, but it's just not really what you. It's not really what you would expect. And then on his side too, right? Like there is the shot that Urasek is there. Who would you rather have in terms of like these kind of crazy low floors and crazy high upsides? Keanu Hill or Urasek?
Tough.
The BYU tight end.
Yeah, I I probably have about the same amount of both. I can't figure out what's going to happen with Keanu Hill. Like I've tried to read a bunch on him. It all seems pretty positive. At least in theory, he should like have pretty much the room to himself. But I also think BYU is kind of doing that BYU thing where they've got a bunch of other tight ends that haven't seen the field that have potential, and any one of them could end up being the guy as well.
Yeah, Keanu Hill feels like the perfect guy to draft in this underdog best ball draft.
Him or Traore.
That was the other guy I was going to ask you is, would you rather Traore or Urasek? And then I guess, would you rather Traore or Keanu?
Yeah, Traore and Keanu is like that's the good question, I think. Very similar in terms of concerns. Both Traore, I think there's a little more real concern in terms of the people behind him, because some of them do have like real college football experience. It's like he's basically been practicing for a year in this, right? Everything that they say about both of them, like you read up anything on Keanu Hill and Traore in terms of coach quotes, it's all positive. But I don't know. I'm still kind of sketched out. I'll draft them here and there, but I can't like load up.
Isn't he with the same like OC or something from 2 years ago that he had a great year or something like that? Like, there's some coach connection, isn't there?
Traore?
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe.
I feel like I heard there was some coach connection that like helped prop up why you should take him. I'm definitely way more in on Keanu. I don't know. It's hard to take a tight end with a playoff bye week. I don't know how much that really matters, to be quite honest, but I think Keanu Hill having the week 10 bye week is probably, it fits a little bit better because I keep taking my boy Rivaldo Fairweather 7 and 10.
I stole from our boy Zach CFF champs affection for Thomas Fidone. I've been drafting a lot of him.
I like Thomas Fidone.
Yeah.
I think Jamal Banks too is like has some benefits as a late receiver.
I think Fidone is like there's comparison to Benson from last year. Just kind of incremental growth year over year. Nebraska in general, I feel like there's a lot of underpricing there, just relative to like what we saw in terms of the offense last year with a glorified running back playing quarterback, and now like Jamal Banks is free, Fidone is free. They're gonna have real quarterback play. Rayola, do you draft Rayola ever?
Never.
Why? He's gonna be awesome.
7-11 bye week. I just have other options I like more.
Really? But would it surprise you? And how much have I buried myself by? I have never once considered anything about bye weeks other than playoffs. I could. It's possible I have zero quarterbacks in certain weeks. I have no idea.
So I'm not. We've talked about this offline. Like bye weeks kind of matter, but like I think you have to acknowledge the other bye weeks, because you're going to have weeks where you don't have one or two quarterbacks max. Like that's just not really. And it's so easy to do is the problem, right? How many great quarterbacks have a week 10 bye week, a week 7 bye week, and that could be a problem.
I take that statement slightly in the sense that I have considered for tight ends. I've tried to make sure that outside of like my very early drafts, making sure that in the regular season, I don't have both my tight ends on a bye week. My overarching thought, one of my overarching thoughts concerning how this will play out, though, on Underdog, is basically that I don't know how close the regular season standings are going to be from team to team, and the separation between the different teams within your division or whatever you want to call it within your league. The 20 rounds that we have is not enough. Teams are going to get ravaged, but like there's going to be teams that are not going to be able to field rosters as a result of attrition by the time we get to week 1. And I think it'll be a learning experience, like going into next year, that we need 25 at least rounds, just because of the nature of CFB and CFF. that, like when we do 30 rounds in Champion Series, that's enough, obviously, or not obviously, but like this end of standings reflect that. Like generally, you look at the standings in one of our Champion Series league or like any 30 round best ball, the standings are like fairly close, and like the even though like inherently there's attrition across your team, so like we're still largely able to field full best ball rosters with 20 teams. I don't think it's going to be enough, and that because of that, like I'm very interested in prioritizing just my general and overall feelings on players over things like a bye week in the regular season, like breaking a tie through that, using that as a mechanism.
But with that said, couldn't you argue that the best ability is availability? Like, if we know that we're just going to get pummeled with injuries and stuff, don't we want to put ourselves in a better spot to have
But
people available each week?
attrition in CFB is partially injuries, and it's also the unknown and ambiguity surrounding what we expect to happen in terms of playing time and depth charts, that in terms of how that plays out in the season relative to what we know now. Guys are going in the top 5, top 10 rounds that probably won't get injured and probably won't see the field for any meaningful amount of time in the season. It's just it happens every single year.
But are those guys that we can predict? Like, let's say this, like Ruben Owens, right? Like that could very easily, he doesn't play much. I like Cam Cook. A lot of people like Cam Cook. We all suspect, is that the guy you're talking about? Is like a Cam Cook that we think, oh yeah, of course he's going to win the job? Or are you talking about like Abu Sama, who is like a 4th round pick, and all of a sudden we expect superstardom and he just doesn't do it because of like what we thought Cartavius Norton was going to be a year ago? Like, kind of, name a player or two, if you know any off the top of your head, that you think fits that mold of like we could be just way wrong on.
So it better not be either of those guys, because I'm like 80% Cam Cook and like 50% Abu Sama. Very, very conservative in terms of my allocations, as you know me to be. But I mean, what do you think about Caleb Jackson? He's not the starter.
I am on this train as well. I don't have much Caleb Jackson either.
Well, he goes in like round 8, 9.
Well, that's the suspicion that like, oh, of course he's going to start. That's just not the case.
Right.
What do you think about him weighing 240? I heard he weighs 240 now.
He's a big boy.
Josh on Fantasy Points was talking about that. CFF guys.
Josh, this is Josh's favorite thing, right? Height, weight, speed.
Height, weight, speed. There's nothing that Josh loves more than a 40 time and a 100 meter time and a weight.
Josh is certainly very happy that there is a 2 in front of Jadon Blue's weight instead of 199 pounds.
To be fair, as much as I think the weight thing is like whatever, there is like some data behind it that makes it worth it. So I don't knock it. And I guess especially, I definitely agree on this. Like, it definitely helps to be fast. It definitely helps to have good weight, like if we're going to start drafting guys for like as long term as they think, like NFL potential and stuff, like it certainly helps to have like a great 40 time. I don't want to draft the guy that's like a 4.7. Makes a lot of sense to draft the 4.4. So I get where they're coming from. But so besides Caleb Jackson, who else are you thinking? Like Jacoby George?
I feel pretty good about him. I've drafted him a bunch of times. I think he feels fairly projectable. Let me open up a draft board and hope that my phone doesn't brick. I need to finally get a new phone. I've been on like a Samsung Galaxy S8 for like 7 years, and it's like it just freezes up when I open up Underdog at this point. Like a lot of my apps no longer work with this operating system, and I can't upgrade it because they want you to get a new phone.
All right. So while you're looking this up, I still think that like if you truly believe that 20 rounds is not enough, aren't you getting an advantage by not drafting like terribly with bye weeks and avoiding Caleb Jackson type scenarios? Doesn't a Jalen Noel from Iowa State have a little bit more sexiness as like a 10th rounder because we know what he is? If you truly believe that.
Yeah, I agree with you. Do you think that I would disagree with that based on
No,
what you said?
no. But you were
Okay.
anti caring about playoff bye weeks in general, and I think
Oh,
you should care
I
about
just
bye
meant.
weeks.
I mean, I'm down with Jalen Noel because I think he's a good player, projectable, and like at that point, like we are. And what? Oh, let me pivot this topic and slightly. So I hit a certain point in the draft where ADP no longer matters at all, and I just start firing at what I like. What is that for you? Do you have that?
I have yeah. There's two spots. I have this weird range, especially at running back, where like if I get to like the eighth, ninth round, it's very possible that I just don't like anybody between the rounds of 8 and 10. So I will reach there. And then I think after the 15th round, I definitely don't think it matters. Like I've drafted Silas Bolden, Chris Hilton, like
Yeah,
those types now.
yeah,
There's a little bit more buzz, and I'm like, screw it. Like I
yeah.
don't care if I overdraft by 2 rounds. Like I want to make sure I get him. Like I want him for a reason. And if he is who I think he is, I don't care if I got him in the 15th versus the 18th.
Right.
I
Yeah.
just want to make sure I get him.
For me, like by like usually round 12, it's like I hate everyone on the board outside of my guys who are all going at around at least pick 200, basically. So at like generally around then, I'll look at the board, and if I haven't drafted tight ends at that point, I'll draft like two really good tight ends just so that I have some floor established there. And then after that, it's just snatch and grab the players that I like who have like 200 ADPs or whatever.
There's just to go with that, right? Like if you like a lot of the 200s, you can't take all of them in the 200s. There's not enough rounds, right? So
Right.
you got to start somewhere.
Yeah.
Did you pull up the board? Have you found
I
some
am.
examples?
I'm trying to find a good example. All of them are like so. All of them would be so. Um, such hot take things that I feel like it's just credibility killers.
Is like Jacoby Lane doesn't cost as much, but like, do you think Jacoby Lane is a guy that could just barely play?
I mean, there's a ton of ambiguity in that receiver room, right?
The suspense. Andrew puts up a comment about how guys are just not going to do anything, and now he can't find anybody in the draft. Instead, draft.
That's kind of that is part of my point, though. I think that like we don't necessarily know right now who those guys are likely to be.
So, how many rounds would you think is appropriate next year?
25.
I'll tell him. I'll message him and tell him, hey, give us 25 rounds.
Yeah, I think 25 is good.
Um,
What if Travis Hunter just ends up playing 8?
That's 100% fair. Yeah. I think that Colorado receiver situation is pretty sketchy. So I definitely agree there. I'm sure you're right? Like I think like the Justice Haynes situation, right? Like,
Yeah.
There's definitely players that I don't feel super. Ches Malusi, there's definitely guys there. I am super interested to see by week 7, like how depleted some teams are, including my own.
Yeah.
Like it is super sketchy. It could be super sketchy.
Totally.
How many drafts have you done so far?
Completed. So I got 55 entries into the Best Ball Mania tournament. 27.
Yeah. 50?
55.
Oh, because you did a bunch of slow drafts?
Yeah, 28 of which are still going. 27 I completed by this point.
Do you only do slow drafts for them?
No, but just from a timing perspective, it was usually either like early morning. I only had like to find chunks where I could find like an hour to carve out. I wasn't doing more than like max 2 fast drafts a day. But how many did you do?
I did 31 in the big one, and I'm gonna max out the $3 one.
I haven't done the tailgate at all. Anything interesting?
You got plenty of time. I mean, they're like 30%. It's like 30% filled. I could see it not fill. There's just not enough people that are gonna play.
So I haven't done a net new draft now since the big one closed, which is like close to 10 days maybe at this point. Are there any huge shifts in like the top 10 rounds? You can't say the Texas thing because that's too easy.
No, there's nothing. There's nothing crazy. You get your weird stuff. I guess saw super weird stuff from the $10 and the $3.
Are
Somebody
people
took Quinn
still
Ewers
lighting
in the
money
first
on
round.
fire on Shador?
Oh yeah, Shador consistently top 3 rounds.
Nice.
Quinn Ewers went first round in a draft yesterday.
I have a screenshot of Shador going 1.09 in one of my drafts from a while ago.
It's incredible. So you brought up Jaden Blue real quick. Yeah, so Jaden Blue, I props to Ethan. He got in on a quick. Like when that MRI news came, he had availability or just decided to ignore his family. Props. And he got in some drafts and got Blue a bunch in like the 5th or 6th round.
Oh, nice.
So I ended up getting maybe 1 or 2 drafts where I got him like 601 in maybe like a 3rd or 4th round. But now Blue is a top 2 rounder, 100%. Is that overreaction? Like where would you take Blue? Where do you think appropriate ADP value is for Blue?
If he's going top 2 rounds, I don't think I would take him. 1, I'm stubborn. 2, I feel like I understand the argument. Obviously, like we see this all the time, right? In CFF leading up to the start of the year, some classic examples, the Wake Forest receiver room, whenever Donovan Green goes out for the year and is projected as a top 2 receiver, Jaquari Robertson, and like it happened twice, and someone else also. And then Lou Nichols and that other guy, remember, like they were both kind of going in the middle rounds. And then
Kobe Lewis.
Yeah. And then Lou's all of a sudden going round 1, whatever. So we like, this isn't uncommon. I feel like, and it usually like, it feels to me like an overreaction just to copy and paste what was the expected production of 2 guys and give 90% of that to one. So I wouldn't draft Jaden Blue personally in the top 2 rounds if that was the cost. Why is he like, so set the market on if it's just player A versus player B rushing yards, who would rush for more yards, Chip Trayanum or Jaden Blue?
Probably Chip.
But Chip
I think it'd be close.
But Chip goes in round 7.
Yes, but Chip also is like new to Kentucky. You know, I do think there might be a little doubt as to like, is it just plug and play? But I guess in theory too, like Jaden Blue wasn't like insanely impressive. He was an insane recruit at one point. But yeah, here's why people like, I think it's one, the fun, like, oh, let me get Blue, this Texas running back, new opportunity. But Mike put out Mike from CFF site put out this screenshot, right? In the last 10 years, starting in 2014, the running back one for Sarkisian ended 16th, 76, 116, 13, 1, 19, 2, 29. And 29 was Jonathan Brooks, and he played 11 games. I think in the 12, if you took his 10 regular season games and made it 12, he's basically like a 1,300 yard rusher and a 40 catch, 300 yard guy, maybe 15 touchdowns. Like it's a crazy season. So like I can see why people like him there. I think for me, he's probably like an RB 6 or 7, maybe, or 8. Like I wouldn't take him over Jordan James.
The last 3 years, though, Sark has done that with the running back that has ended up going number 1 overall in his respective NFL classes.
Yeah, that's where you have to. That's another piece to it, right? Like, is Jaden Blue, Najee Harris, Bijan Robinson, or Jonathan Brooks?
I forgot Najee's part of that too. So
he was the 16 and the 1, 13 and the 1.
That's the number 1 overall running back in the NFL draft. The last 3 running backs, right?
Yeah,
that he's had.
Yep.
No, feels like an important footnote.
Yeah, but also too, right? Jaden Blue is a 5-star. He was like the number 1 running.
Did you know that he so he sat out his senior year in high school? I just assumed it was like COVID related or some shit. Do you know the actual reason?
No.
I just read this like 5 minutes before we started. He had two knee surgeries in middle school, and his knees were just like a disaster all through his childhood.
What? That seems a little crazy.
Yeah, it's interesting.
All right. I think I don't know. I'm going to go back to what Josh. I know Josh is a Jaden Blue guy, so maybe he wouldn't say
Yeah.
this,
Does
but like
Josh? You
Jaden
think
Blue's a
Josh is
little
just?
light, don't you think?
You
Jaden
think
Blue's a
Josh is
little
just
light.
80% Jadon Blue and Underdog? He has to be, right.
I'm 100% sure he is.
Yeah.
He has a ton of them in the champ series.
Yeah.
It doesn't
He's the
have much
Donald Duck.
Baxter.
He's the Donald Duck counting his money meme right now.
Rightfully so.
Yeah.
He played that well. Well done. Let's play a little. Would you rather? Who would you rather have? Jaden Blue or Devin Neal?
Neil.
Yeah, I don't think that's close personally. Jaden Blue or Phil Maffa?
So Maffa is my RB2 in Underdog. So Maffa.
Why do you have him that high? Is it just like the fact that there's literally no one else to give the ball to? He's just such a safe play.
I think Omarion busts. I don't want Giddens given like I just expect the way that the rushing production gets distributed in that offense to not like I don't think he gets that large of a share of the pie, and I don't want to pay up for whatever that share looks like. And then who else is there's another running back that I probably should be thinking about, right?
I mean, there's Ollie, of course.
Yeah, I take Ollie obviously over him.
Yeah, Jaden Ott, Darius Taylor.
Yeah, I like Moff over all of them.
I think personally, I think Blue fits between Taylor and Ott. I think I would rather Phil Maffa, Jordan James, Darius Taylor, because Taylor's upside is game changing.
You like Blue more than Chip?
Relative to ADP, I just would grab Blue in the third and Chip in the sixth. Call it a day.
Good cop back.
What I've been trying to do, I did it for a while, was get Dylan Sampson and Chip in back-to-back picks, but then people are on to me. That's not happening anymore.
Your idea is in the playoffs, Chip destroys in week 12, and then Sampson destroys in 13-14, right?
My idea is that, 100%. Yeah. And Sampson's going to be a great pick early because he's going to be he's the true guy with Sullivan missing some games.
You sold me on him. After we talked about it, I started drafting more of him.
The more I looked into him, the more I was like, this is an auto click. Like I have to take him as much as I can. Yeah. Everything makes sense. But I do think I'd rather Blue than Ott. Ott to me, maybe it's because he's out west and I just haven't like seen him. But he's also been banged up a bunch. I think I'd rather Blue, and Blue obviously has a lot of positives, so it's not like I'm thinking Ott's the worst player. I definitely would rather Blue over Taj Brooks, Donovan Edwards, Quinshon Judkins, right?
Are you scared at all? So I haven't drafted Edwards once. Are you scared at all that like we could be looking back a month and be like, fuck, I don't have any of this guy. It's over.
I have like the championship game last year. I have a decent bit of them. I'm starting to draft more of them. I don't have a ton though. I like 12%. It just doesn't land that way. Like I'm not taking him over Jordan James. I'm not taking him over maybe like a receiver one if I haven't taken him in the early third. It's just kind of a weird spot for me to not hammer him. But I do think Edwards is kind of like Darius Taylor light. Like I don't think it happens and the likelihood isn't there. But I do think Edwards, it's so easy for us to be like, why did we ever doubt a Michigan offense that just wants to hammer the run? And like maybe Edwards just, if you think about it, right, Edwards has produced like crazy against great teams. I've made fun of it, right? But the Donovan Edwards against Washington thing is rightfully so make funnable. But like he's been incredible when Corum got hurt, he was incredible. So why can't he just do that?
I know. Yeah, I'm worried.
So it doesn't help. He's not that it matters. He's crushed Ohio State twice, but like he does have Ohio State in the playoffs, which is kind of not the most ideal of scenarios. But do you draft quarterbacks early? Who's your highest drafted quarterback?
So I sold out. I was initially fading quarterbacks early, but then I was like, fine, I'll sell out and just be a sheep and start doing it. My highest owned quarterback, you could probably guess. I might as well the money's already been lit on fire. Like
Who was my brain is not working functionally correctly.
John Mateer.
John Metzger. He's like a top 5 quarterback for me.
Yeah, I'm like 70%, 80%.
How much doubt do you have?
So now that I have a 247 subscription, I refresh the page. They have really good coverage on 247. The guy writes like 3 articles a day. Their practices are like open, so you get reports every day. They cycle the 2 quarterbacks. One gets first team one day, then next the second. It feels very back and forth. I don't know. I get such PTSD from how poorly I read the Evan Prater Ben Bryant battle from a few years ago, that when it comes to something like this, I always feel like I'm going to end up reading it wrong. I do feel fairly good though about how this is going to play out. I think it'll be Mateer, but there's I don't know. It's difficult to base it on like true facts other than like sentiment.
So you're telling me that you start the show saying people are drafting players that just won't even play for 10 weeks and for a lot of the season, and you're here 70% of a quarterback clearly in a quarterback battle.
I'm nothing if not a hypocrite.
Did you see Joshua Meredith's quote on Mateer and Zevi?
I've read everything, so I'm sure I have.
I liked how he like low key said that Zevi has like a noodle arm, like doesn't have a good arm. He just gets it into pockets, it floats, while Mateer has like a cannon on a deep ball and stuff like that. Is Joshua Mateer the guy? Is one of those guys as well? He's got like 4 career catches, yet we keep drafting him.
Yeah, he keeps going higher and higher. There was a nice pocket where I was getting him whenever I wanted him for like 10 drafts. And now I never get him anymore. He just goes, he's always, I feel like he's moved up like 2 rounds from like 11 to 10 to 9, even into 8 over like the span of like a week. And I think rightfully so. It truly feels like he is going to be getting Lincoln Victor like targets.
Yeah, he has his ADP is like 112 right now. Would you rather him or Kyle Williams?
Is this a cost thing?
Sure, we can do it at cost.
It's tough. I like both. I initially was drafting a lot of Kyle Williams, but then once I started to pivot like very much into a strategy where, so maybe like the first 10, 15 drafts I did, I wasn't like super into like quarterbacks early, but I ended up settling on a strategy where round 5, I'm basically taking Deion Burks if he's there. Rounds 1 through 4, almost always I'm going 2 QB and 2 RB. Rounds 6, 7, 8, I'm grabbing Mateer and Cook. Speaking of guys who might not play. And then probably another RB, like one of Sampson or Chip or Fegan. And then rounds 9, 10, if a quarterback slips like Shuck or Weigman, I'm in. Hoover, I love, but I pray that he's there like 11, 12. 9, 10, I'm grabbing receivers. And then by 12, after 12, right, like I was saying earlier, like we were talking about, like it's just start grabbing my guys that all have like later ADPs or whatever. And my last like 40 drafts, that was pretty much my strategy.
Gotcha. I want to pivot a little bit. Do you want to help me build a parlay slip on PrizePicks for season long props?
They're up?
They are up.
When did they go up?
They just went up.
What about, hold on, I need to fucking
I knew this would totally throw you off. Jalen Milroe, 2,300 passing yards. How does it make you feel?
Oh shit, there's Mike's hitting me up on Discord.
Yeah, I think we need to end this podcast immediately.
No, I can't bet PrizePicks where CFB, so we could do this together. We should share your screen.
Alrighty, I will do it. 1 second. This is strictly Brett's going to be the only one that gets to see this. Let's see. PrizePicks. I mean, Milroe, we're looking at my PrizePicks, right? Let's
Oh,
see.
are
Yes.
you? At the stage, I have to like
Oh,
do
here we
this
go.
control stuff.
Oh
Okay.
God, we've never done this before.
Um,
Uh,
Scroll down. So, I mean, the first thing you want to do before you start firing, I feel like, is generally get a sentiment of what the book strategy is. Keep going. So
just
they,
your main SEC, ACC, your main
and by
quarterbacks like
their
Fafita.
strategy, I mean, so are they projecting median outcomes for their players, or are they intentionally lowering their projections to offset injury? That feels like what is being done here. So, like, for just from an approach perspective, I feel like you want to like that's something you want to be cognizant of. Yeah. So
This is dangerous. Some of these numbers are crazy.
well,
Um,
they're all intentionally low, right?
yeah,
They're
they're
all
begging
adjusted
for us to
downward.
go overs.
This is so compared to, like, it's so funny looking at some of these numbers, like Canby, so Bet Rivers and books like that, they did kind of a similar thing, but they did a really bad job with it. Like, they adjusted a lot of them way too far down. So these are adjusted down, but they're correcting for a lot of the mistakes that can be made. So, for instance, Aronde opened at like 375. There, Kyron Lacey was like, I plan on going under Kyron Lacey from like March when he opened, but he opened at like 450 on Canby. So I was like, okay, fine, I'll go over. What catches your eye?
The two I've selected.
Oh, Milrow over.
Milrow 2300 over, Cam Rising 2450 over. Tez I feel like is an over, but I'm just not betting 850. Like,
yeah, these are a lot of copy paste from Canby.
I don't see unders. I was hoping for unders. Like, the
Yeah,
only
so
one I would
this is
consider
the problem.
is
It's really it becomes really tough to underhunt, and I like intentionally. So I intentionally approached Canby like to try and hunt for unders, and I took some bad numbers as a result. Juice Wells is already banged up. He's been in non-contact. Supposedly it's nothing, but like you like find any tweet talking about him being banged up, and it's a zillion South Carolina fans just shitting on him for taking the bag and running last year. Go to running backs.
There's only receiving and passing yards.
Smart.
What do you think about this? Yeah. What do you think about this Tet line? 900.
I played his under on Bet Rivers at 900. Not for a ton.
You
So
played
you saw
his over or under?
You saw he returned to practice yesterday, right?
I did, yeah.
I probably wouldn't play it at this point.
I agree. What about Ewers at 2750? Did he hit that last year and he didn't even play the full season?
Dude, he's not playing full season this year.
Oh, I'm asking the wrong guy.
Yeah.
Jackson Dart, maybe?
So I've been thinking about hitting this and having it, but I like Shador under. Like, that number is basically 260, 270 a game.
I don't know. That's it. I mean, it's close enough to me where I don't feel like I need to. I feel like people are going to. Don't you think people are going to go over on that number and then I can get a better number to go under on?
Maybe it's been sitting there on Bet Rivers at basically that price. It hasn't moved much.
What about some of these numbers are pretty good. I mean, Avery Johnson, 2,200 under.
I have Bowman under 3,000, and it pained me to do it, but it's like that's like a bit high. Just like copy that feels like a copy paste 12 game sample, which is like, I don't know, dangerous to just assume.
Yeah, so I'm not.
It's great to see. Good. I mean, it's awesome. We finally got some props.
Yeah, I'm gonna put something in and put it on national television.
You are not playing the Ewers over. Do you hate money?
I won it last year. I'm gonna do it again. I'm gonna run it back twice.
You got a better number than me. I lost my Ewers over. You really won Ewers over?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
I lost mine by like 50 yards because they
missed. Yeah.
Not even that. He needed like 150 against Texas Tech, and they won so easily. He didn't even have to throw for more than like 100 yards.
What do you think about Concepcion's number? 675.
It feels low, but I don't know. I've outside of McCall and I have a little bit of Justin Jolly. Like I just don't know what to do with the receivers.
All right, so I want to add one more. Which one do I go? Do I go Lacey and just go all in on this?
Go down.
Gadsden.
Oh, Trey. Play Trey over.
You think so?
Trey Harris, 700 yards.
Oh, Trey Harris, 700 yards. That works well because I have Dart.
Yeah.
Let's do. What does that get me? Yeah, let's do that. 50 to win 1250.
That'd be all right.
I don't like doing all these overs. I'll probably do a couple threes, nothing insane, and then shut it down. And hopefully, it's just a trap, is what it is.
It is
because it's just a trap. So I'll probably wait for rushing yards. I would feel way better about in some.
Yeah, I have some great openers there out from Canby. I have like Jaquindon Jackson under 1,025, Marcus Carroll under 950, Roman Hemby under 750, which is still at 700. I'm thinking about going back for more of that. Like that is a committee that people are catching on to, like that dude Nolan Ray being real and gonna like it's not just gonna be right. It's not just gonna be Hemby and Colby McDonald. Like Nolan Ray is gonna take up a good percentage of that pie. He didn't even hit 700 rushing yards last year, and I think he played every game. Like I would love to see that come up on PrizePicks for you, right? Get a Roman Hemby number because that feels like a nice under opportunity.
I have I'm starting to really get a bunch of Roman Hemby on Underdog. So
what are you doing? Why?
He just is so good in the passing game. I don't know. Why not? At the cost, and he's in an area where I don't really like a lot of players, so I'm starting to draft him.
At that point in the draft, I feel like I pray Parker Jenkins is there. He's not a lot of the time, but I agree it's gross. But like I usually have 4 or 5 running backs by that point, so I'm not like I don't feel inclined to take him.
Yeah, so I'm usually around 4 to 5, like 4 running backs, and so he's my 5th.
Yeah,
and his bye weeks work well, and I just genuinely think like he is gonna get enough touches. He had a bunch of really solid games last year. I'm curious.
He's a trap. He's not going to be like. He also had games where he got like 2 carries and barely saw the field. Like I don't think they. I think they want. I don't think they want him to succeed. And like I don't think that they feel the best version of their offense is him doing anything that is actually helpful in fantasy.
I think the biggest issue with Roman Hemby, and I don't think it's anything that's been said yet. The biggest issue is that freaking Billy Edwards is going to steal all the touchdowns within the 3-yard line.
I don't know if I'm making this up or not, but I thought that there was a season-long prop on Canby for MJ Morris, and I might have dreamed it, but it's not there anymore. And I'm just kicking myself for not taking this prop that might not actually have ever existed. Billy Edwards is going to win, right? That job.
I hope so for the Nate League sake, but I don't know, man. It's not going to matter for fantasy purposes for Hemby because if Edwards wins the job, he'll be in to steal the touchdowns around the goal line. If he's not the job, if he's not the quarterback, then he'll come in like he did on Tagovailoa. So if he's going to come in on Tagovailoa, he's going to do it on MG Morris. So,
true.
Anyways, well, glad that we get. This is 2 great weeks, or maybe 2 out of the last 3 times we've recorded something has happened, which is Hines getting drafted and that really ticking you off, and then this time the PrizePicks dropping.
Did you see I just got Hines in OG Dynasty?
I did not.
Yeah,
I'm happy.
We're at the point in the draft where it's just me and like 2 other guys drafting.
I know. I'm like, there's a couple guys left, and I'm just like, come on, let me get to waivers because there's a couple that I need. We picked up Monty in the BTR League.
Excellent.
So we helped scratch that itch, but
nice.
Alrighty, well, glad we could hop on another week, get another set of great breaking news with PrizePicks totals. Hit us up in Discord or Twitter or whatever if you have questions. Curious what everybody else is betting, and then we'll catch you guys later. Have a good one.